Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Discoverygarden webinar series. We are pleased to be back for the 2018 year. We have a lot of great webinars lined up, and we're going to kick it off with a great one here. As leaders in the development of the Islandora open source software, Discoverygarden is constantly developing new modules and enhancements that provide impressive performance improvements for Islandora users, which you are all aware of. Our team is pleased to announce the release of the Islandora ImageCache module. When installed and configured, this module will serve to reduce loads while significantly benefiting overall site performance. As always, as you just heard, I will be recording the webinar, and I'll send it a link to access it later on for anybody that might be having technical issues or has to leave early. Again, as always, your mics are going to be muted for the duration of the session to eliminate background noise. When we reach the question portion, please type your inquiry or throughout the presentation, type a question into the chat window. And at the end, I will read it out loud, and we will address. So for those of you that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Adam Smith, and I'm the Business Development Manager here at Discoverygarden. I've been with the company for about 2.5 years now, and I have had the pleasure, as I mentioned, to speaking to most of you. There are a few new people online today, so welcome. For those of you that I haven't met, I look forward to talking to you or meeting you in the near future. If you ever have any questions or needs related to your Islandora instance or anything regarding Islandora or the services that we offer here at Discoverygarden, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'll get back to you very, very quickly. So in typical fashion today, we're going to start with an overview of Islandora and Discoverygarden. As I mentioned, this might be a refresher for some of you, but there are a few people on the call today that are new to the Islandora community. So after that, we'll move into the main part of the webinar, which everybody's here for, which is going to feature a discussion on the Islandora ImageCache module. Again, just a reminder that following the presentation, we'll open the floor to any questions that you might have. And as mentioned, please type them in the chat window, and we'll get to them. So with that, let's get started. So as I mentioned, let's start by talking a little bit about Islandora for anyone who might be new to the community or new to the webinar series. So the Islandora open source technology stack consists of 3 core components, being Drupal, Apache Solr, and Fedora Commons. The stack also includes a lot of utility components and dependencies as well. Islandora is a very large open source software stack that includes many applications. So in essence, the developers of Islandora and the community that supports it are experts at integrating third-party tools into Islandora. Let's talk a little bit about the core components individually now, and we'll start with Drupal. So many of you are familiar with Drupal, as it is a leading open source content management system with over 30,000 user-contributed modules from almost 100,000 active community members or developers. Now, active community members are vital to any open source project, and the same can be said for Drupal. People are invested in Drupal much the same as they're invested in Islandora, and that leads to ongoing development and ultimately success. So Drupal serves as the presentation layer within Islandora. It's how we create a website. It's how we expose it to the internet. We also use Drupal for collaboration purposes as well. It has a great framework for users, roles, and permissions. And we use that workflow for activities, and it really does integrate in with a lot of other functionality within Islandora. Islandora, in essence, is a suite of Drupal modules that allow us to build repositories on top of Fedora Commons. These modules make it possible to build, populate, and configure a digital repository without the aid of a developer. So next up is Apache Solr. Apache Solr is used for discovery within Islandora. Solr is very powerful, it's very flexible, and it's very configurable. It's used on some of the most heavily trafficked websites and applications worldwide. Some key features include full text search, full search faceting and filtering. It's highly scalable and fault tolerant, and it provides near real-time indexing. So for example, if we ingest an object into Islandora, it's going to be indexed within Solr almost immediately and will become searchable probably within 30 seconds after ingest. So the final core component is Fedora Commons. Now this is the layer that stores and preserves all of our digital content. Fedora Commons is purpose-built for data preservation and long-term data accessibility. Some key features of Fedora Commons include auditing and fixity checks, RDF XML support. We're able to scale Fedora Commons to millions of objects. It has support for virtually any file type, and it's built for interoperability. That means you can export or migrate your data in a format so that it can be stored elsewhere should you choose to do so. So as mentioned, those three core components make up the open source technology framework. And we like to call it a framework as it really is the integration of components working well together. Organizations all over the world are using the Islandora framework to build repositories, and we continue to develop these repositories for organizations on a monthly basis all over the place. Now, some of these instances are customized in order to meet specific needs, and some are not customized as the software is very usable out of the box. People are scaling these repositories into the millions of objects, and they continue to have these large repositories perform very well. It helps create fast, usable sites that are meeting and exceeding customers' expectations. So now, as promised, a little bit about Discoverygarden. So Discoverygarden is a service provider of Islandora. We work to remove barriers to using the open source technology. We launched in 2010, and we were a partner in the Islandora Foundation, which is the nonprofit entity that fosters the Islandora code. So since we've launched, we've contributed to over 90% of the existing Islandora code base, which we've written here at Discoverygarden on behalf of our many customers. We offer a lot of services that relate to an Islandora repository. The complete list is on our website, and I'll include links to that in the information package that I send out later today. Some of those services include consultation. We can work with you to train you on how to build your digital repository. We can do installations, custom development from a variety of other systems, in-depth training, annual support and maintenance, and we also provide hosting services to any of our clients that are looking for it. Okay, so moving right along, now it's time for the main presentation and the main reason that everybody's here today. I'm looking forward to it myself. It's the presentation on the Islandora ImageCache module. So it's my pleasure to introduce Discoverygarden's own Morgan Daw. Discoverygarden is a senior developer here at the company and is a wealth of information for all things Islandora. I rely on Morgan a lot on a day-to-day basis, asking a lot of questions, and he always has the right answer to help steer me in the right direction. So welcome, Morgan.
Hello, everyone. As Adam said, my name is Morgan Daw, and I'm the lead front-end developer here at Discoverygarden. Today, I'd like to talk to you about a newly available module called Islandora ImageCache, that's why we're all here, for use with Islandora. I will talk about some of its companion modules as well, which extend its functionality beyond what the ImageCache module can do out of the box. So first up, let's talk about where the need for such a thing as Islandora's integration of ImageCache external came from, which is a Drupal contributed module. The need for this module first came about as a nice-to-have option, which quickly turned into so much more. While browsing through an Islandora website, images are being served in a number of places, typically found on collection pages or search result pages, which display thumbnails of a given object. These images will likely all differ in size and aspect ratio, and likely any other property presented through the browser. Drupal already has a solution to this called ImageCache. That module works with content that is stored in the Drupal database or images saved in the public or private file locations in the configuration. Since Islandora objects and images, for that matter, or image data streams, are not stored in this way, another option needed to be considered. While exploring the concept of normalizing object thumbnails, it became obvious that the thumbnail is not necessarily representative of a given Islandora object. Some have even suggested in the past the thumbnail should not be stored as an object's data stream, and this kind of makes sense given that the thumbnail is a derivative created solely for the purposes of display in most instances. In addition, any solar view or search results page with many images could take additional time to load, since for each image, a data stream needs to be served from Fedora for each thumbnail. If we could avoid loading these data streams in the browser, a site's response time would improve. In terms of performance enhancements, there are two main places images are presented in an Islandora instance: within Solar Views and within the Browse or Search result pages. With more results configured to display, the greater impact on a page load. We see this effect often on a website's front page as well, where more and larger images are typically used, normally within Islandora Solar Views. Now, this is not necessarily an issue with websites that implement a caching solution on served images and content. With that said, these enhancements can be implemented in more than one way. So for example, in the past, including a thumbnail in a solar view required, as some of us might already know, rewriting the outputs of a solar field, typically the PID field or a global text field in the solar view, and manually write some HTML, which then implements replacement patterns to add a URL to a handwritten image tag, which ends up loading an image data stream out of Fedora in the view in question. So this, of course, means a request to load the image from Fedora. In this example, it's simply an object's thumbnail, but it could be any data stream. So not to mention the additional headache of writing HTML by hand in the view's user interface. One of the ways this module, Islandora ImageCache, implements performance enhancements is to automatically add a new solar field for use in views called Islandora Solar Data Stream Image. I mentioned before the steps required to add an object's image data stream into a view. With this new module, all those extra steps to add a thumbnail are obsolete. Instead of manually writing an image tag, rewrite the views field result to load the Fedora data stream image. The new solar data stream image field will automatically load an object's data stream as configured in the view's user interface and serve a cached version of it. The interface even allows for the creator to specify the image style to use and the data stream to implement as a source. Because we can now specify an image style, we can control an image's size, crop, grayscale, its rotation, and more in the standard Drupal image style interface, just as if it were native content served from core Drupal. Using an image style, depending on configuration, will compress the size of the newly styled image being used in place of the object's data stream. Next, we'll talk about the configuration options available to this new solar field and review performance metrics on a fresh demonstration environment I had set up for this call. Now, we see the view field configuration options presented on the screen. Once we've added this new field to our display, we can configure the data stream to use the image source. So in this case, it's a data stream ID. And of course, we can choose to link the image to the source content as well as we can with other solar fields. We can even specify the machine name of the image style to use, which means you can define your own. So no more HTML or markup in a view to create an image referencing an Islandora object's data stream. Just add the new solar field and click Save. ImageCache External will do the rest, including automatically generating an image style derivative the next time this data stream is referenced in this view. Next, we'll look at metrics for a real-world example of what this technique can do for an Islandora repository's website front page. To display the performance benefits, let's take a look at this quick demo I set up to outline the difference this module can make on a page load. Here we're testing a front page load time. The front page in question has a number of images, including a large background image and 3 views beneath it. Each one of those views has 5 images within it as well. While the performance grade of the site is still acceptable as we see here, the load time or its speed is not as optimal as it could be. This is primarily because of the size of the images served from the data stream that are being referenced and time taken to serve those images from an Islandora data stream. Considering the size of the page is 17.5 megs, it's no wonder the load time could take a hit. Granted, this might seem like an excessive example of a front page, but the truth is, it's more and more common to see this amount of visual content on the front page. In the next slide, we can see what happens to these numbers when the same site gets the Islandora ImageCache installed and configured. After installing Islandora ImageCache, we make use of the newly available solar field made available in solar views from Islandora ImageCache, and the difference in page load time and page size is fairly substantial, as you can see. The page size alone has been reduced by 97%, which in turn makes a tremendous difference on the page load time, which is improved by at least 70%. We also use other aggregation techniques like CSS and JS aggregation in tandem with Islandora ImageCache. Additional performance enhancements can be made, which is what we're going to see on this page here. As an additional base of comparison, these most common techniques, as I said, like CSS and JS aggregation, which is essentially compressing JavaScript and CSS data into as few files as possible. They're presented alongside the image cache performance enhancements you see here on your screen. While we still see additional improvements, the greatest boost actually came from a standard Islandora ImageCache installation. I think the difference between these last two slides outlines how much Islandora ImageCache has to offer those looking to improve performance, not just on the front page, but on search result pages or collection pages as well. Notice the performance grade dropped a few points in this example due to the query parameters Drupal CSS and JS compression technique adds to the resource URLs. These additional URL parameters were added to the compressed CSS JS and core Drupal 7.2 to avoid potential DDoS attacks. Disabling this option in the site's config files is technically possible. It would actually increase the performance grade, as you see there on your screen. However, doing so is not recommended for security purposes, so working within the confines of the existing system is highly recommended. Now, if we take a closer look at the content delivered on this demo box I'm using, we can see a typical user visit to the site without additional compression techniques. We see the image content size alone has been reduced by a staggering 98%. This helps to illustrate the powerful compression techniques implemented by Islandora ImageCache by using the ImageCache external contrib module, and how dramatic the performance benefits can be. It's never been a secret that more images on a page means more time for that page to load. Now I feel with the introduction of Islandora ImageCache, a happy balance can be found to present robust and beautifully styled images and maintain a fantastic page load time. By now, our users would have most certainly noticed the page load time is now down to just under about half a second, where prior to the installation of Islandora ImageCache, page load times were over 2 seconds on this demo box. Now, all Islandora institutions can start using and customizing the ImageCache installation right away. But to make the most of the module, be sure to double check that the Islandora installation in question uses a Solar backend display. This will ensure collection pages get the ImageCache treatment as well. Displays provided through Solar, such as Grid and List View, have thumbnails that are rendered with Islandora ImageCache. By dynamically altering Solar results, the thumbnail and templates expected are automatically replaced with the ImageCache version. Any objects that may be XACML protected, for example, are still respected. A user's permissions are taken into account, and if a user should request to see an image they do not have permission to view, the default icon is used in its place. These XACML protected data streams, as we call them, or data stream images, will be implemented by Islandora ImageCache even still, but are instead stored in the configured private file directory. It's important to configure a private file directory when using the Islandora ImageCache module suite for this reason. This setting is built into core Drupal. We will shortly be discussing modules that make use of this, but the Islandora ImageCache module is very easily extendable by implementing hooks provided by its built-in API. While only 2 hooks exist at the moment, this module is always in the corner of my eye, and any opportunity I get to extend its functionality, I will take. These 2 hooks include styled thumbnail URL alter, which allows a modification of an individual object's thumbnail on page load, and default icon alter, which is a hook to replace the default folder icon found in the Islandora core module, which of course runs it through the ImageCache treatment, so it will inherit a style as defined on the image styles page of Drupal. The replacement work used configured Drupal image styles, so for convenience, the Islandora ImageCache module provides 3 image styles to implement. Islandora ImageCache image style small, medium, and large. These image styles, such as width, height, crop, scale, and so on, can be managed in the Drupal interface like any other image style. They can be completely rewritten in the user interface, or feel free to make your own image style and use them in place of the provided image styles. ImageCache also makes it easy to reference any image stored in an Islandora object's data stream, internally or externally, by making use of the dynamic image reference feature. This means if one was building an external application or would like to reference image content in another site, or even dynamically on page load, one could manually write an image tag or pre-process a template and add a URL with a custom image size and query parameters. So using the example we see on your screen here, we could reference any object still respecting the configured access permissions with any data stream and dynamically return a styled image. A use case for this might be creating a Drupal node and adding HTML to the body field when using the full HTML field text formatter. Adding the image tag above would result in an object's thumbnail data stream being loaded with a new image style that scales and crops the requested data stream into an image with the dimensions to a width of 200 pixels and a height of 400 pixels. No image style need be created prior to requesting the image, as it will automatically be created or reused if it already exists. It will be created in this case with a name of Islandora 26TNW200H400. And that name will be found on the image styles configuration page, along with every other available image style. This approach allows further refinement to images being generated in this dynamic image reference way, such as adding rotation to this style or changing it to grayscale, for example. I mentioned that Islandora ImageCache respects XACTML restrictions. It's so important in making this respected. It was a top priority during its development. Once the private file system path is configured, XACTML protected image data stream images derivatives are stored in a private file directory whose access is controlled with existing access checks in Islandora and Drupal. These images derivatives, while both public and private, are flushed automatically when a data stream is modified or changed. So, for example, if a user were to replace an object's thumbnail data stream with a new image, we'd want to invalidate the cache. Using the data stream DSID alter hook, the Islandora ImageCache module will find the old thumbnail data stream derivative being used as a cached image and remove it from the public or private file system as needed. The next time that data stream is requested, a new derivative will be generated to replace it. Image derivatives can be further managed by using the Drupal contrib module, Image Style Flush. This free module from Drupal.org will provide the ability to delete all image style derivatives of a particular style. It's useful if a site has additional caching techniques, or for whatever reason the cache needs to be flushed manually. It can be done through the user interface with this module. Now that we've examined the ImageCache module, let's take a look at two companion modules that were built using the hooks it provides. First is the ImageCache IP embargo module, which is essentially a convenience module. IP embargoes will still function properly when Islandora ImageCache is enabled, even without this module. However, the text found on the thumbnail, which some of us will know is typically the word embargoed by default, that text would not display on thumbnails. So this module provides the programmatic requirements to make this functionality work as expected when combining the usage of Islandora ImageCache and ImageCache IP embargo. We can think of it as a turn it on and forget it, but again, really, it's only needed for institutions that use the IP embargo module and are interested in also adding ImageCache to their site. The Islandora ImageCache default thumbnail module, however, is a bit more extensive. Those who have been interested in the Islandora Labs GitHub repository might recognize the name of this module. I had built and submitted to that repo a module called Islandora Default Thumbnails some time ago. While I feel that module had the right idea, its configuration felt a little clunky and not very convenient to use with features integration. It really only had one replacement procedure and unfortunately did not support image caching techniques. I felt that with the introduction of Islandora ImageCache, this would be the perfect time to rewrite the functionality of Islandora default thumbnails from the ground up. And this time, however, I was sure to correct the fault of this module's predecessor by implementing all of the missing features from the first iteration. This module deserves its own talking point, so let's go ahead and take a closer look at it and how it works with Islandora ImageCache. The ImageCache default thumbnail module no longer has a configuration page. This time around, thumbnails are treated as content in Drupal, just like a node would be. That said, this new content type can be managed like any other, with additional fields, or field settings updated or modified according to a repository's requirements. Using the hooks provided by Islandora ImageCache, in this case, ImageCache styled thumbnail URL alter, a field entity query loads default thumbnail node configurations, which have the object's given cmodel, and applies a node configuration replacement procedure in the order they appear on the node configuration page. This allows for multiple configurations for content model, and it can be applied in descending order, so you know which order your replacement procedures will be executed in. This works by creating a new piece of content type Islandora ImageCache default thumbnail, and select the content model or models this replacement procedure should apply to, and select the image that should act as a replacement object's thumbnail. The entire process would make more sense if we were to look at the node creation page for this new content type. So let's take a quick look at that page now. So in addition to default node configuration options, we configure the new thumbnail replacement procedure by creating a simple node, and we first select a descriptive title for it, such as image and video default thumbnail. Select the content model or models we want this node to apply to. Select the appropriate replacement procedure. As you can see on your screen there, there's more than a few. The images to be used as replacement for a current thumbnail can be selected below, and when clicking either of the last two options as a replacement procedure, we can specify a list of PIDs to apply this configuration to. This list of PIDs, which essentially can be considered within Islandora a unique identifier for Islandora objects, will only be applied if the object in question has one of the configured content models on the page, or are members of one of the supplied list of PIDs, such as a collection. This option makes it easy to change the thumbnails for the contents of a specific collection while maintaining standard thumbnails on all other objects, regardless of the content model. Now with that, my presentation on Islandora ImageCache and its companion modules comes to a conclusion. I'd like to thank everyone for attending this presentation. I have been looking forward to sharing these modules with you for some time. I've been very excited to hear what the community has to say or think about it. Now, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or to Adam. I'm sure we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you very much, Morgan. Before we open the floor to questions, I just want to talk about how much this whole thing costs. So we decided here at Discoverygarden to put a $2,000 US price tag on this. So Discoverygarden will install and configure the module and all companions for that price. If you have current existing professional service hours with you, that equates to 12 hours. And note that support hours cannot be used for this implementation. We have multiple payment options, as always. PayPal, credit card, typical fashion check, whatever works for you. But that's what the price would be. If anybody's interested in getting this module set up, please contact me or respond to the information package that I send out after this call. So with that, let's open the floor. So again, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat window. So we have one question. Does it work with CDN?
It works natively within the confines of an Islandora instance and is currently not distributed over a CDN.
All right, we'll give it a few more moments. If anybody else has any questions, please type them in the chat window. Well, Morgan, I guess you were so thorough, you did such a great job that you answered everybody's questions before they even asked them, which is always a good thing. That being said, thank you to everybody that signed up today and signed on. As I mentioned earlier, I'll be sending out a complete information package today with a link to this recorded webinar. And as well, I'm going to send a PDF of all the slides that Morgan went through today. We do have one more question. We'll just wait for it to pop up here from viewer number 6. Does this allow you to change the default sizes we have configured for derivative thumbnails?
Yes, absolutely. When specifying the image style to use for solar views or within the solar backend display presented in list or grid, you could specify the width and height of the desired thumbnail. Currently, in most templates from Islandora Core, there's a little bit of CSS that comes along with it to give images a max width or something like that. So you may have to override the CSS to allow the image to be its true width and its true height after it's been styled through Islandora ImageCache. But this does allow you to change the default size you've configured for the derivative thumbnails.
All right, a few more moments to see if there's any more questions. And that looks like it's it for today. So again, thank you for joining us today for our January 2018 webinar. Stay tuned for our February newsletter that's going to be released soon. That's going to reveal the topic of our next webinar, which will happen in late February. So thank you again to Morgan for presenting today. It was very informative, and I hope that everybody enjoyed the presentation. Again, if you're interested in the module and the benefits that it will bring to your Islandora instance, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. So with that, I will say goodbye, and we'll talk to you in February.